Hey, and welcome to week 5 already of the Create Yourself class. I hope that you are excited to start our second month together. It's hard to believe that we are moving into the second half of the class already. The first month has definitely flown by, and I'm so impressed by all of your work. Every time you guys post, I'm so impressed with what you're creating and how you're sharing parts of who you are into your work and really challenging yourselves with the new techniques and the new skills that you're learning in Photoshop, and then also finding ways to connect who you are to the work that you're sharing. And I'm so impressed, and I'm so proud of all of you for pushing yourself and challenging yourself. And we're going to keep moving towards that in the next few weeks. Just to kind of explain what the next couple of weeks are going to look like, we're going to spend a few more weeks really kind of figuring out how we can channel who we are and our lives around us and how we can incorporate that into our work. And then towards the end of the month, we're going to move into a little bit more of the business side of things. I'm going to share with you how I run my social media and how I think that it can help you run your social media. We're going to talk about copyright infringement. We're going to talk about working with brands and companies. We're going to talk about licensing your work and selling your work online and how to go about doing that. There'll be one extra bonus video for you at the very end, and that's sort of a Q&A where if you feel like I haven't answered any specific question you have, or if you have any more questions, that'll be the time for you to send those in, and I will record that for you, make sure that you have all of your answers and you feel content in everything you've learned. Anyways, back to what we're doing this week, which is kind of continuing on what we've been doing in the last couple of weeks. I want to share with you a little bit more about how to use visuals around you to create work, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about the importance of places around you. And that's what I'm going to start with this week, is really talking to you about happy places. You might be familiar with the term go to your happy place or find your happy place. I think it's really important that we have a happy place. A happy place, to me, when I picture what happy place means, it's usually somebody that's in a chaotic environment that's kind of closing their eyes and going to their mental happy place where, you know, nothing can get in. And maybe that is your happy place, but for me, what I'm talking to you when I mean happy place is about a physical space that you can go to that makes you feel happy, that makes you feel creative. And why I think that that's important is because I think that we live very hectic and busy lives, and we don't often allow ourselves the chance to really do something for us that feels good. And so going to a happy place is usually a time and an opportunity for us to kind of ignore all of the stuff that we have to do or that we're told to do, and really kind of enjoy doing what we want to do. For me, my happy place is the forest. I feel most at peace, I feel most at my creative peak when I'm outdoors, when I'm doing something creative in the woods, in the forest. And I find that even if I'm walking in the woods, even if I'm going for a run, that being outdoors, surrounded by trees, surrounded by mountains, is just so therapeutic for me. It just makes me feel so much more calm and creative, and I feel like it just kind of renews all that creative energy. That's my happy place. For you, it might be that natural space. It might be a lake that you like to go to, a forest that you like to go to, a park that you like to go to. It could also be something like a library or a coffee shop or a city park that you enjoy spending time at. It can be somewhere in your house. It can be your bedroom or your office or your study. Wherever it is that you feel kind of is your zone, is your happy zone. I think it's really important that we do spend time doing that. What I learned from spending time in my happy place, that forest that I talked to you about, was that it really kind of gave me a chance to get rid of everything else that was going on in my life and really spend time doing what I wanted to do in that space. When I was in the forest, I was kind of paying more attention to the world around me. I was noticing when the sun was setting, where the sun was setting, what the weather was doing, what the trees were doing, where the flowers were growing, what types of flowers were growing. And I found that it really connected me back into the world, and I think that's really important. For some people, their creative kind of happy place is people watching. So an airport or a bus station or a busy city park, that might get you going, thinking about how people interact with each other, how people are when they're out in public. Just people watching might be something that really kickstarts your creativity. For other people, it might be that quiet space at home when they can meditate or watch a movie or read or just listen to music that helps recharge them. So your happy place is really a chance for you to find a place that recharges who you are. And I think that that's something that's really important to find as a creative person and just as an all-around well-balanced person, is to know what your happy places are. So my first worksheet for you this week is really based around your happy place. So I want you to think about where your zone is, where your happy zone is, and I want you to share it in the group, share it with everyone in the most creative way possible. You can explain it to us, you can write it out for us, but if you write it out, I want it to be as visual as you can make it. I want it to feel like I'm there too. So if your happy place is a coffee shop, I want to know what it smells like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, what happens when you're there. If your happy place is the forest, I want to know exactly what it's like when you're there. So I want you to share with us in the most creative way what your happy place is and what happens when you're in that space. Happy places aren't just limited to a natural outdoor space. Your happy place can be also an online space. And I think it's really important that we spend time in our online spaces and make sure that it is a happy place as well. So when we go online, and many of us are spending a lot of energy and a lot of time online, we need to make sure that that is a happy place for us as well. I know that for me, there's places online that are not happy places, where people are unhappy, they're negative, they want to talk about the faults in people, and that's not a good place. It's not a good place to be personally, it's not a good place to be creatively, and it's not benefiting me in any way, shape, or form to be there, so I don't go there. Happy places for me are places like this group, where people are genuinely looking out for each other, they want people to succeed, they want people to keep working and sharing, and that's a happy place online in the digital world that I can go to. And there's lots of places like that, and if you don't have one, then I suggest you try and create one. You can create a group on Facebook or a blog or a forum where it is like-minded people that are really kind of looking at the same things that you're looking at, that can be a happy, safe space. And I think it's really important that we have those happy places both offline and online, because it helps us really feel energetic and excited, and that people are in tune with what we're trying to do. When I first started photography, I had a really strong group of friends that we met through the website Flickr, and that was my happy place because all of my friends were there, all of our work was there, we were messaging each other back and forth, we were commenting back and forth, and it really felt like a creative, happy space for me to be. While Flickr sort of has phased out, Instagram for me has taken over. It's a chance for me to connect with people, to talk with people, to message each other back and forth, and I feel for me that Instagram is a very happy place for me because I've curated it to be that for myself. So I think that you should spend some time figuring out where your happy places are in a digital sense as well. And so there's a worksheet included in your lesson that is an invitation for you to really analyze your spaces online, your digital spaces, and list the ones that are happy places and what you get out of being there. And I share with you some of my happy places and places I think you can go and follow and maybe get a bit of happiness as well. The second part of this week's video I wanted to talk to you about is continuing on from the past few weeks where we talked about how we create and how we can attach visuals to kind of our lives. And so last week we talked about fears and how we can attach a visual to something we're afraid of to help us come up with a picture or a photograph or a piece of work that reflects that. The week before we talked about timelines and how we can just attach visuals to maybe how we're feeling. So I said, you know, umbrellas were something that come up in my mind when I'm not feeling so great, and balloons come up in my mind when I'm feeling energetic or excited. So this week I wanted to continue on with that way of thinking, that attaching visuals to things by broadening sort of our reach and talking about physical objects. So the physical things that exist in our spaces. I'm talking mostly about using props or objects in your work. Some people don't use a lot of props or objects in their photographs, and that's fine. For me, I've always liked doing it. I think that for me, my work is really a chance for me to expand our idea of what's real and what's not. And my personal sort of motto in my photography is that anything is possible. And I want to show that in my work. I want people to feel that that's something that happens. And so what I try to do is I try to take everyday objects that we see all the time and bend our idea of how they are used. I try to use those objects in ways that are maybe not typically seen, or maybe they change the function, the size, the meaning. And what I feel like that does is it helps broaden my ideas and broaden my creativity, and it also invites the people viewing my work to think about the world around them in a different way. I like to use objects that I enjoy personally. So I enjoy reading, so I use a lot of books. I enjoy coffee, so I use a lot of coffee mugs and teacups. I enjoy the stories like Alice in Wonderland, and so I tend to use visuals that are attached to those. But you can use visuals that are attached to your stuff as well. If you are really into, vintage housewares and vintage kind of technology, you could use an old computer, an old typewriter, old light bulbs, old kind of vintage cool mechanics. There's tons of different things that you can attach to yourself that mean something to who you are, that reflect back into who you are. When we first came up with that mind map, that list of the titles of who you are, I'm sure that there's physical objects that go along with those titles of who you are, and that means something to you personally. For me, using physical objects is always a way for me to really kickstart my creativity when I'm feeling a bit low on the creative juices. If I'm feeling a bit maybe creatively unmotivated, what I can do is I can go to a thrift store or vintage shop or any sort of a store that has really creative and cool stuff, a craft store, and kind of wander through the aisles and look at the objects and see if something there sparks something in my mind, a way to use that object more creatively. The same thing with the collection of stuff that I have in my happy place, which is sort of a treasure trunk of random things that I picked up along the way that really kickstart my creativity, that help me look at things in a more creative way. And so my invitation for you this week is to look at your objects around you and see if you can attach a visual to those objects and a meaning and a story behind those objects, and really expand upon what those objects mean to you and why you are using them in your work. So for me, I thought I would go through and just sort of pick something that I have in mind. So I don't really know where I'm going to go with this. Just one second while I get my papers organized. Oops. So I thought for me I would use so an object that I have is a globe. So I really like using globes because I like to travel, and so globes really represent traveling to me. So I think I'm just going to write the word globe in the center of my paper here. And so what I want to do, first of all, when we do our mind mapping based around an object or something that we're thinking or seeing, is really expand upon the visuals that go along with that word. So I'm going to branch off, and what kind of visuals go along with a globe? Well, it's a round, it's a map, it has countries, it's usually colorful, it has like that little stand that's attached to it. And so I come up with a little list of all the different terms that go along with the word globe. So then I try and think of, okay, what are the sort of feelings or actions or sort of non-descriptive physical words, if that makes sense. So if I think about the descriptions of a globe, what does it mean instead of what it looks like? I think of, well, adventure. I think of travels, obviously. I think of journeys, that's the same thing as travels. I think of challenges, maybe, because if you're traveling, you're usually challenging yourself, you're usually going somewhere that may be out of your comfort zone. And I think we'll even say big, because the world is a big place, and it's hard to sometimes feel like we matter in a big world. So then what I've done is I've branched out those second words a little bit bigger than our first little group. I don't know if you can really see that. There you go. And so what I want to do is start building up that idea. So I have a globe. It has some maps and countries, and I have these ideas of big travels, adventure, and challenges. So I'm thinking, okay, so it's big, and I want to show challenge. I want to show that, you know, it's a big world out there, and we're feeling challenged. So how am I going to connect those together with a globe? Maybe I have the picture of the globe on its little stand, just like that, and I'm thinking, okay, so I want to show that the world is big. Obviously that means that myself, or the subject in that photo, should be small, and I want to think about challenges or traveling or adventure. So why don't I have like a little bit of a ladder kind of going up to that globe, and I've climbed that ladder because a ladder represents challenging and growing and you know, climbing and sort of that idea that you're getting to the top of something, you're reaching the top of something. So I have this little person on top of the ladder, and it's like sticking one of those like pins when you go traveling or when you've been somewhere. You stick the pin in that country, so maybe it's someone sticking that pin in that country, in that little in that spot, to say that that's somewhere that I've been, and that's somewhere that I've met that challenge, I've met that goal. So that's an idea that just came out of my head, just from thinking about one object that I have and how I can connect those together. I didn't have that idea in my head before. I just thought of a prop that I saw across the room, a globe, and how I can use that in a creative way. And I've done that in a lot of my photographs, where I've connected things that are a visual object but really mean something to me personally. So I like to use objects like a teacup, which for me, a teacup represents sort of that feeling of being home, that feeling of being comforted, because when you're not feeling well or when you're at home, you have a nice cup of tea or a nice cup of coffee, and it makes you feel content, it makes you feel safe, it makes you feel warm. And so the idea of using a teacup as a home, or something that you can use that represents that feeling of safety, is something that I use quite often. So you might see me sitting inside a teacup, sort of using it as a boat. Well, for me that means that teacup is a safe space, a safe mode of transportation, because it represents comfort and represents warmth and home. I like to use books because I like to read, and I feel like that's a visual representation of something that I really enjoy doing, and it helps me connect those stories. So just like we did a few weeks ago when we were talking about how do we connect our visuals to maybe challenges or things that we've gone through in our life, we can do the same thing with our interests. We can say, I really like to read, so I'm going to use these books, and how do I take that visual of a book and create a story based on it? Well, just like we did with that mind map with the globe, you can take that visual, a book, what does it physically look like? It looks like pages and words and stories. What does it mean? Well, it means adventure, it means you know, history, it means the unknown, it means adventure, and all of those other words that describe a book. What does it mean? Those stories. And how can you use that to really build up a visual image that represents maybe something that you're experiencing in your life right now? So maybe you are experiencing a challenge, or maybe you're experiencing a happy moment. How can you take that physical object of a book and represent that in your life? Maybe that book contains a doorway inside of it. Maybe that book is it's open in front of you and it's exploding out all sorts of pages that mean that all sorts of exciting stories are about to happen. It's one way that you can look around you and take a physical object and use it to turn into work. And so what I'm going to do in your worksheet, or what I invite you to do in your worksheet, is to take 3 objects in your space and create 3 stories or visual photograph ideas that are built around those 3 objects, and see if you can turn them into photographs. So I hope that that makes sense. That's one way that I try and kickstart my creativity if I'm feeling maybe not so creative, is to take objects and try and brainstorm, just like I did with that globe, and I'm going to try and create that this week for you guys to look at. And I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the importance of happy spaces as well. I can't wait to see what you guys create this week, and I look forward to continuing on in our class. Talk to you soon.